Welcome to the Coach Barnabas podcast. It's time to take a few minutes and leave behind the stuff that drains us and recharge our batteries with some encouragement and insight. Finding the extraordinary in the ordinary.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. It's episode 39 of Coach Barnabas podcast. My name is Corey. Welcome. I am out, as you can see, out and about, running some errands. It's Sunday afternoon as I record this. And as I was out and about, I had this sense of urgency. And so I'm coming to you from my car. And it's an unplanned symbolism, I guess you could say, in that I think I have an urgent message for you that was inspired by the sermon I heard this morning. My pastor delivered a message that was based on chapter 24 of the book of Acts. Real quickly, just to give you a little foundation of that, in the book of Acts, chapter 24, is a story of a man named Ananias, who was a bad guy, who wanted to see Paul, the apostle Paul, basically condemned to death for being a really good Christian. So I won't go into a lot of detail because, I don't want to take too long and I don't want to prolong this. But so he brings Paul before a man named Felix, who was a corrupt politician and by no means a Christian or a believer, follower of Jesus. So Ananias lists these qualities that he believes, and he obviously, this is we hear a lot of talk in present day about the weaponization of the judicial system for political reasons and blah, blah, blah. Well, think about that back in this day. That's exactly what was happening. Is Ananias was weaponizing the judicial system to really take Paul down and neutralize him, get him out of the game and possibly even see him put to death for the crimes of basically being a follower of Jesus. So he brings him before Felix and lays out these accusations, and Felix, in an act of fairness, kind of surprising for the situation, actually gives Paul a chance to speak on his own behalf. And Paul lays out his argument, which was not defensive at all, but he did basically illustrate the absurdity of the charges that were brought against him. So Felix in that moment decides, I'm not going to make a decision one way or the other at this point. So he has Paul hauled off and put in jail, put in prison. Later, while Felix is with his wife, they invite Paul to come speak to them about his faith, about the faith in Jesus. So Paul comes and essentially delivers a 3-point sermon to them. It wasn't something he had prepared for and studied for. This is just, he laid it out. And it was very pointed because Paul knew that Felix was not living a very just life. And so Paul's message was filled with love, but it also was pointed to his audience. And but he laid out ultimately how Felix could be redeemed and not face the consequences for his behavior and his decisions in his life, how he could avoid the consequences of basically the judgment that would lay before him. And after hearing all this, Felix decides, makes no decision, basically. He says, I'll think about that, but I'm not going to decide anything now, and has Paul return back to jail. And we don't know, honestly, there's no record of whether Felix eventually came around and converted and gave up his sinful ways and began following Jesus. I suspect no, but we don't know for sure. But it was years that are chronicled where Felix didn't do anything and was eventually replaced in his role. So, we don't know, but who knows? So the point is, though, is that he deferred his decisions and kept putting it off. With that in mind, I was reminded of a dream I had a couple months back. And this dream was, first of all, I hardly ever remember dreams, but this is one that really stuck with me. It kind of haunted me. And so it stuck with me. And, to kind of share it with you in a general sense, This dream involved a real life friend of mine who passed away earlier this year. Now, this friend been in and out of church, been in and out of practicing his faith, kind of on again, off again. Super good guy, but I'm not sure where his commitment was. He's a friend of mine back from California. I've been away from California for now almost 11 years. So I don't know where he was, at the time of his passing. And I pray that he was serving Jesus and just ushered into heaven, upon his death. But the dream was that I was in a position to speak to him during a prodigal period. And again, he was more of a representation. It wasn't a literal thing. I think God just used him as a representation for this message. So anyway, I was presented with an opportunity to speak to him in life. Okay. So that's how the dream is going, is we're speaking in life. And what I did is I started with a bunch of fluff. I was talking about, hey, we have all these shared experiences. Wasn't this a great time we did this? I think you're the great guy. You have such talent. You're such a wonderful person. You've done this. We shared this experience. Remember all the times I was just talking about this stuff going on for a period of time. And finally my friend said, hey, look, I gotta go. And, but it was good seeing you. And that was the end of the conversation. And then in the dream, of course, was the knowledge that my friend died without us being able to really complete that conversation, which the purpose of that conversation was to just speak to him of the urgency of getting right with God, the necessity of getting right with God. And that I woke up kind of haunted by that, like, dang, we don't know in our own lives and the lives of people around us when that time is going to come. And I spent so much time talking about fluff and nonsense, or, and they all have their place. But if you bury the point, if you bury the importance of the message with other things, and you never actually get to the purpose, you don't know what jeopardy and the consequences that can come from that. I also thought of a situation where a friend of mine from decades ago told me a story about how she was living at home at the time with her parents. And this one particular morning, they were all getting ready for work. They all had jobs. She and her parents had all different jobs. And she and her father got in an argument this particular morning, as they were all getting ready for work, got in an argument. It was very heated, and they all left the house, kind of in a, frustrated and angry, and their last words to each other were harsh and not very, loving, let's say. And on the father's way to work, while he was driving, he suffered a fatal heart attack. And that was it. And it haunted her, obviously, because her last conversation with her father, which she had no idea would be her last conversation with him, was so negative, and one she regretted for the rest of her life. Now, of course, it wasn't in this particular case. He was a Christian, so that wasn't in the balance. But she carried with her the guilt and the shame of their last conversation was not loving. It didn't end with "I love you" and "hope you have a great day" or whatever the case may be. It was filled with words of anger and frustration and that kind of thing. And all that to say is, going back to the story from Acts 24, is whether you are in the case of my dream, the speaker, there's an urgency to make sure that we are sharing the gospel message, sharing the love of Jesus to people wherever we go. That doesn't always mean, cornering people and shoving something down their throat, but representing the love of Jesus. And maybe the opportunity comes to us more often than we are aware of, because we're not looking for opportunities to share Jesus. When we look for opportunities, we're going to find opportunities. If we're not looking for them, we're not going to recognize them when they come. So we need to pray each day, God, lead me into opportunities to share you with people. And sometimes it might be to lead them to Jesus. Sometimes it might just be an example of Jesus' love in their life, or to post something in your social media, something to encourage them, to tell them about your church service. I mean, whatever. There's infinite ways to introduce somebody into a conversation about Jesus, about eternity, salvation, redemption, all this stuff. So as a speaker, there's that urgency. As a hearer, maybe you're watching this and you've been putting, just like Felix, you've been presented with the message and you are putting off making a decision. And, not now. I'm going to think about it, give it some time, and maybe eventually, if the time is right, as Felix did, he said, I'll summon you again, and then basically, you can introduce me to a life with Jesus. That was basically how chapter 24 ended in that conversation with Felix and Paul. And sometime, maybe you're watching this, or somebody's in this position where they've been presented with the truth, with the love of Jesus, with the truth of the consequences of this life ending without asking Jesus to redeem us and forgive us of our sins. And we've just been putting off, I still have some things I want to do, or, I have some things in my life that aren't right yet. I want to get that stuff worked out first. And it could apply to almost anything, is that, if there's something you really don't want to do, you're going to find excuses. You're going to find reasons like, now's not the right time. I'm really busy. I got stuff to do. There's things I really want to do that don't really fit with what you're talking about. I mean, whatever. We make excuses of all kinds to put off things we know might challenge us to change. Okay. We have a tendency to put that stuff off because we know what it's going to take to do that. We may even think it's the right thing to do, but we don't necessarily want to let go of the things we want in our lives. And so when presented with that, we just decide to defer change in those moments. So whether you're the speaker, whether you're the listener, the question is this: if not now, when? Okay, what are you waiting for? If you're waiting for to use the analogy, the phrase, which, I don't believe in this, but it's just a phrase, it's a figure of speech. If you're waiting for the moons to line up and all the planets to align and all that other stuff, if and when it does happen, it may be too late, like in my dream where the person passed away before I got to the importance of the message that God put on my heart for them. I mean, how awful would that be to still be carrying the message that you never delivered to that person, and now it's too late? Or for the person, the hearer, to defer making a decision that would secure our eternity with Jesus because there were still some things we just didn't want to let go of. So that is my message to you. If not now, when? And now's the time. And pray about that. Think about that. That is my encouragement for you. And as always, folks, I just want to challenge you. Okay. But remember to be encouraged, be an encourager. I look forward to talking again very, very soon. Take care.
Thank you for joining the Coach Barnabas podcast. We'd greatly appreciate your support by liking and subscribing to the podcast and setting up notifications so we can let you know when new episodes are available. We'd love to hear from you, so please leave a comment. Make a difference today.